one of the biggest issues we see, especially in B2B web design across tech companies, and I think SaaS companies are especially guilty of it, is that their sites are ego-driven. The secrets to crafting a B2B website that attracts, builds trust with, and converts a steady stream of qualified sales leads. In this episode, you're going to learn some of the key mistakes so many companies make with their B2B website, the importance of customer research when it comes to your website and resonating with dream clients, as well as some of the main pages and elements that make a killer website for B2B service or technology companies. Oh, and if you haven't yet, why not join thousands of B2B legends enjoying my weekday newsletter for unusual SEO and B2B marketing tips, podcast updates, and more? Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit that newsletter tab. Now, let's dive into the episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of web design companies out there. You have chosen to focus on B2B tech companies, I think particularly maybe with a focus on SaaS companies. So I'm curious, why have you chosen that as your main event?
It wasn't always. I mean, I've been messing around with websites and SEO for probably the best part of 12, 13 years now. And I've quite literally gone from serving almost anyone and anyone that might need a website or to get found online to slowly niching down to, like you say, B2B technology. So quite often SaaS companies, and then the odd service company in between here and there if they're a good match. Usually because we found those folks tend to have a marketing setup within their business. So they've got marketers, often, not always if they're super early or super bootstrapped, but often they'll have a marketing team. So they'll appreciate the value of organic search, rather than us having to sell to them the value and how it helps, how it works, the problems it fixes, the way it can capture inbound leads and all that good stuff. They already appreciate the value. So it just made a bit more sense for us. And likewise, because I am, this sounds super meta, but because I am a B2B tech company, essentially selling to other B2B tech companies, and I'm a founder that sells myself, I know the value of inbound leads. They're literally the lifeblood of technology companies. So it felt like almost over the years after doing it almost as an uphill battle, trying to sell to anyone and everyone, eventually found my niche and the customers that seemed to be a good match for our offer. But I wish I found it many years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because as marketers, we sometimes forget to apply the principles of marketing to ourselves, right? So we would tell our clients, hey, you've got to narrow down, you got to find the persona, you've got to focus in on this. And we can very easily be guilty of, I can help anybody. So
for sure.
So I was very intrigued by your tagline there. I've been involved in a bunch of website projects over the years, either internal or working with agencies. If you're really lucky, I think it's run by a marketing team who sort of really gets it and understands targeting. The reality is, if you're in a big organization, it's probably something run by a committee. If you're in a small company, a startup, it's personality driven, right? It typically is the founder or the CEO or what have you. So, so I am curious, what drove you down to this, and just tell me a little bit more about that philosophy.
Oh, the tagline.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, you land on the breakingb2b.com homepage and you'll see B2B SEO and websites for revenue, not vanity. And it was mainly because I've worked at a couple web and marketing agencies over the years. And also I've, of course, taken on client projects where they might have had bad experience with companies and frustrations, and having guest marketing leaders on the podcast. It is essentially, I got annoyed because so many clients would bring to me like monthly reports or results, and they look awesome. It's like when someone does a post on LinkedIn, for example, Steve, and they post this crazy upward graph trend, and it's like, we took this website from 100 visitors to 100,000 in 3 months. And then I'll comment on it saying, great work. So how many qualified leads did that drive? And then there's just like a tumbleweed, zero response. Right. And it turns out it's this like super high traffic volume blog that they churned out with AI just to go after a really high volume traffic keyword. But on the back end of it, it's just a super top of funnel informational based query that doesn't actually result in high intent buyers. It's just someone looking for information. So I kind of got sick of agencies basically taking clients for a ride and saying, well, we're getting you all this traffic, we've got you all these rankings. And it's like, well, that looks good on paper, but where's the leads? Like, where's the demo requests? Where's the sales calls on the back of it? Because ultimately, most folks, yes, we use organic search to build our brand. We use it to ramp up website traffic. We use it to build mind share, of course, especially important B2B, because it's rare that, especially in high ticket products and services, that someone sees your website for the first time and then will inquire about $100,000 ACV offer. They need to see it many times and speak to their team. Yes, all those things play a part, but ultimately we want inbound leads. So a lot of those kind of fluffy metrics that you'll see flying about on LinkedIn posts and these crazy graphs, that kind of annoyed me to the point that I thought I'd like to do the opposite of that and try and put together a headline that resonates with folks that are maybe feeling frustrated as well.
Yeah, I think it works. And yeah, I've had a few of these discussions back and forth on LinkedIn comments about vanity metrics, right? Because I rail against vanity metrics, and then people say, oh, but this metric is useful, that metric is useful. And my point behind that is any metric can be useful as long as you know why you're measuring it and what activity it's driving, right? So it may be, for whatever reason, maybe you do want all of that top level stuff. Maybe it's to get more VC funding or whatever it be. But you got to understand why you're doing it, right? It's not just so that you can have that pretty slide to show in the board meeting that shows everything.
Yeah, that's
going
it.
up and to the right.
That's it.
Makes sense. So when you do get into it, somebody's read the tagline, gone to your website, said, yeah, I want to work with Sam. What are maybe the top 2 or 3 things you would tell a CEO or a company owner they should really be worried about in terms of website design and SEO? What are sort of the top couple of things you really start out with?
Yeah. So there's a number of things. I mean, we can drill into common mistakes and then maybe how to set those right. And I think you alluded to it at the start of the episode, Steve. One of the biggest issues we see, especially in B2B web design across tech companies, and I think SaaS companies are especially guilty of it, is that their sites are ego driven. So what I mean by that is that basically they're designing the site in terms of the messaging, in terms of the content, in terms of the copy, the headlines, taglines, and more based upon what the company thinks looks good, sounds cool, works well. And it might not even be the company. It might not even be the exec team, the marketing leaders, the revenue leaders. It might even be, like you said, the VC fund or whoever's backing them on what they think looks cool, but it's not resonating with target prospects, ideal clients, aka the folks that are going to buy your stuff or inquire to buy your stuff. And it's probably the opposite approach. And what you've got to remember is the chances are, if you're a software or if you're a service company, you've got a warehouse full of your stuff, or you've got an unlimited supply of software. You don't need to sell to yourself. You need to sell to the folks that are potentially going to book a demo or book a sales call. So that's the common mistake. And I think it's just because they copy competitors so much. So they'll look at their competitors in the market space and they'll see these crazy homepage taglines like an all-in-one 360-degree revenue platform to supercharge your revenue with our tech AI wizardry. And then it quite literally confuses prospects. So prospects will land on your homepage for the first time ever. Maybe they've come from an ad, maybe they've come from a Google search or elsewhere, and they'll see your homepage hero error. They'll read that headline and they'll be like, what the heck do these guys do? And they'll scroll down a bit further on the page and they'll think, I see some features and I see some offers, but I'm still not quite sure. And they'll scroll right to the bottom. They'll still be none the wiser, just because this company's kind of try to sound cool, or maybe they're talking about their awards, or they're talking about funding gained, or they're talking about recent G2 or accreditations won, rather than actually trying to resonate with their target buyers and talk about, well, clearly share the offer itself, the problem that it fixes, or the results that it brings to the table. So how it helps target clients get a job done, fix an expensive issue, or improve their life, business, or whatever they're trying to ramp up. So that's like one of the biggest mistakes. And there's a lot of ways to fix that, but that's probably the most glaring one in SaaS and B2B tech.
Yeah, it's funny. As you were going through the list of, 360-degree, all-encompassing, I was waiting for award-winning or world-class to be in there, because that world-class is the one that winds me up, because that is, one of the most meaningless phrases. I guess award-winning is as well, because you can buy your way into those. All right, so it sounds like you sort of have maybe three classes of of tagline or headline in there, problem you solve, et cetera, et cetera. Um, how do you go through the discovery phase to work out, what that tagline should be, and which of those three areas you really want to, take it into?
Yeah, so I like that question. So there's a number of ways that you can do it with the headline. I've got a bit of a framework that I advise clients on, and it really depends how far along the line you are with your business, like whether you've got a solid product market fit, whether you've been able to do decent customer research, i.e., you've got, I don't know, up to 10 or so clients that we can interview that they don't have to have been with you for that long, but it's really so we can understand like what their motivation was for using you, the problems they came to you to fix, why they chose you opposed to your competitor, um, the results that you've brought to the table now, and a few other interesting and useful kind of points like that of qualitative customer research. But you might not have that depending on how early stage your company is. If you're later stage, you probably have. If you're earlier stage, you probably don't. So there's a few frameworks I like to use for the homepage headline. And a lot of this is built upon something called the grunt test, which you may or may not have heard of from a chap called Donald Miller in a book called Building a Story Brand. And it basically is on the basis that could a caveman sitting in his cave, he's never seen a website before, he's never been on the internet. Could you stick a laptop in front of him for the first time ever, fire it up onto your homepage, and without ever having any knowledge of your company or your business before, he sees your homepage, sees your headline, and could he quickly grunt exactly what you do, how it helps them, and how to learn more or get in touch? And the thing is, if you couldn't do that within a few seconds, then your website's probably missing the mark. AKA, if you're spending money on ads, SEO, or whatever type of marketing or ads you're doing to drive traffic to your site, is basically going down the drain, because they're going to bounce off to a competitor that gives them a clearer and more enjoyable experience. So one framework I use is, if you're early stage, I usually just recommend something called pure clarity headline, i.e., we do X that improves Y. So in our world, that might be we craft websites that generate demos or sales leads. Super simple, but it's clear. And I'd rather have something that's crystal clear, i.e., we do, I don't know, B2B websites that generate qualified sales leads. Or if you're in tech, maybe, let's say you're in the calendar scheduling world, I often use, we help prospects schedule time with your sales team on the calendars without the endless email back and forth. Something like that, maybe a bit more short and snappier, but gives you the general idea.
Right.
And that is better than saying we're a 360 all-in-one revenue driving AI supercharged award-winning platform. It's like, it's just talking about how great you are. I have no idea what you do. The second one that I often use is fixing a problem or talking about a pain point. Like, if I take it to our world, most SEO is focused on traffic and rankings. We ditch that to focus on kind of organic search that drive leads. So there's probably a fluffy or a vanity metric that a lot of prospects in your world are frustrated with, that bring to the table, a lot of your customers bring up. So you could basically say most sector companies focus on this, we do the opposite, and then share your point of differentiation. Or the other one is a kind of similar thing, which basically I used in my headline, where you pick an enemy. So in mine, kind of websites and SEO for revenue, not vanity, and you basically stand against the enemy in your sector. And again, most of that is taken from listening to sales calls, listening to prospects. Maybe you're in communities and you kind of hear what your prospects bitch and moan about, and you basically talk about how you stand for the opposite. So that's a few frameworks that you can use depending on kind of how much research you've got behind you, or whether you just want to do something crystal clear. And then obviously straight underneath, typically in that homepage hero, you have a call to action to grab a demo or learn more, maybe a snapshot of your product, and then maybe kind of brands worked with, like 150 B2B tech companies helped this year or whatever.
Right. Hey, so I really like those frameworks. I mean, really, you're bringing it back to some kind of a messaging strategy. How do you handle that with prospective clients? And I'll admit, I did this a few years ago when I was on the other side of the counter and I was bringing agencies in to redo a website. And one of them came in and sort of pitched well, first thing we got to do is a discovery session and we're going to work on your messaging and all that. And I'm saying, we've already done that. We already know our messaging. Who knows if they were right at the time or not? Probably were. So how do you push back against that resistance where somebody says, no, we don't need you to do the messaging for us. We just need you to fix the website. Do you come across that?
All the time. And sometimes you'll break through, other times you won't, probably like as you've experienced in the past, I'm sure. So it really depends. Like, I suppose it depends on the stage of the business, on how relevant this is. Because if it is an early stage company and perhaps they're bootstrapped and they haven't got that many customers, then it might not be as relevant because the website's probably not getting a ton of traffic. It's probably more founder-led sales. So the founders may be utilizing his existing network, referrals, maybe doing a bit of cold outbound, maybe doing a little bit of ads. So the website's probably not getting all that much traffic. And as long as people can flick onto that site and get a clear idea of what he does or she does, how it helps them, probably check pricing, check proof of results, case studies, maybe see the offer in action if it's Saas, and then easily book a call. As long as it checks those 5 or 6 boxes, it doesn't matter. Whereas when you're ramping up business and then you're going more aggressive on other channels, be it SEO, be it paid media, be it investing in paid review sites, be it maybe some of your team's active on social channels like LinkedIn, maybe you're launching a podcast and you're going on other people's podcasts, doing webinars, and you're getting more and more traffic. Your company is getting more visitors to the site, and you've probably got kind of various other competitors that are getting brought up in sales conversations. That's the point where the messaging is going to be more important, because then you've got to actually show that this is how we're different in the marketplace. And that's where, like you said, Steve, customer research is important, because then you can pick up things like why have your recently onboarded customers decided to choose you opposed to your top 3 competitors. If you are doing regular customer research, which is super useful for your website, you can garner insights like what made them choose you, what was the expensive problem that they fixed or that they wanted to solve rather than by choosing you, what were they maybe trying to do in-house. Like so many times, Google Sheets is the most common thing that folks do in-house, opposed to, I don't know, investing in your CRM or your software solution or something like that. Like, what is the common tool that folks use in-house before getting so frustrated with that way of doing things that they then look for a new, better way? And how can you leverage those insights into your message? Like, are you tired of using Google Sheets? Like, this is our new, better way that's 3 times quicker and it's going to save you 5 hours per day on your admin. So when you start getting into differentiation, how you're basically got a one-up on your competitors, or what actually are the reasons your customers choose you, is going to be super useful in that messaging standpoint, not just for your website, but across your ads, across your message on social, across your sales conversations, and all that good stuff. So not as important when you're fresh, but certainly more the more you grow.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, you shared some of the questions you asked, because I think some people would get into it, not if they're a web agency, but if it's an internal marketing person or somebody trying to do it themselves. Well, I don't even know how I don't even know what questions I would ask to get there, right? So that framework you were talking about, it's not a little bit like this sort of jobs to be done thing, right? Like what
it is. Yeah, exactly.
What problem are you trying to solve here? Why did you bring us in? What was that issue? And that's a whole nother discussion that we could get into, but I like that approach of, it's not just, hey, what did you like about our website, right? It's really driving into, what is the hole you're trying to fill by buying our service or our product. So you've listed through some of the big things you want to see on the homepage, right? Obviously, attention grabbing headline, easy way to book an appointment, testimonials, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say you've fixed the homepage or created a new homepage, right? That's job 1 is done. And then you sort of move deeper into the website. One thing that I think often generates a lot of discussion is a pricing page. I always rail against companies that do not have a pricing page or do not have serious pricing on their page. I'm curious what your approach is towards pricing pages.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. It's not so much with kind of what I call lower ticket SaaS companies, because they'll usually share their pricing, because their pricing might be anywhere from $10 a month to $50 a month with some custom enterprise plans if you've got tons and tons of users or seats. It's usually the larger enterprise companies, because we have 100K ACV, we can't share pricing on our website. Or the more custom B2B service suppliers. Oh, everything we do is bespoke and tailored to order. So how dare we share pricing? It'll scare off the quote unquote leads. That's usually where I see pushback, but I'm in the same camp as you. I think I've been there actually, because at one of my previous companies I was at for some time, I would just get frustrated myself on the sales side, because I was dealing with a lot of the sales calls. We just get all these leads, and I'd end up having discovery calls with them for 30, 45 minutes, sometimes even an hour, understanding like what issues they're facing, why they want to fix it, where they want to get to, their goals. And then we get towards 3/4 of the convo, and they just have nowhere near the budget to work with us. And I'd say, this is frustrating. Like, we need to stop this. We're wasting their time. They'll probably get annoyed. I'm certainly getting annoyed. It's wasting our team's time. It's wasting our ad spend, whatever. Let's just share the pricing on the website. So it's super easy if you're a SaaS solution, because you'll probably have 3 tiers, maybe like basic, medium, advanced, and then an enterprise option. But when you get to more customized solutions, I think that's when folks get a bit worried and a bit scared. So that's where I normally encourage people to use a bracketing pricing approach. Like, I don't know, tier A is from 3 to 5K, tier B is 10 to 20K, tier C is 30K plus. And it typically covers these bullet points within the offer, but get in touch with us for a tailored kind of discovery call or demo, or whatever your next step is. But the good thing about a pricing page is not only does it qualify in decent fit prospects and qualify out poor fit ones, but it gives you a chance to address a lot of the kind of common questions and problems that you get on sales calls. So I'd always encourage you to have kind of pricing options at the top, or brackets, and then maybe weave in some social proof. So maybe have like a video review of one or two of your clients, where they talk about that problem, why that initial problem they faced, the impact of that problem, why they chose you compared to 2 or 3 competitors, and what life's like now and the results you've brought to the table. And then you can have a nice FAQ, like a carousel section, but not a generic FAQ like most companies, but where you actually address the questions you get on sales calls head on, like, why are you so expensive? Isn't competitor B better than you? How long does do I get a dedicated account manager? How long setup time? What's your refund policy? I literally did this on a lot of our service pages on the Breaking B2B site. Like, why are you more expensive than competitors? Isn't it quicker to invest in ads compared to SEO? And just all those questions I get all the time, just address them head on. And it just speeds up sales cycles, and it drives more qualified prospects. So when folks book a call with sales, that they already know, kind of, they're already more than halfway there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because it's another one of those that differentiates between lead generation and revenue generation, right? Because I think, one of the objections is, well, I want people to contact me to find out the price, because then I'll get the lead, right? So I'm getting more leads that way. But the reality is, to your point at the beginning, if they're completely out of your price range, that is not a qualified lead anyway. So you've just wasted their time and you've wasted your time, particularly if you have that 45-minute discovery call before you even get to that. And then I think even worse, you'll have some clients or prospects that are too nice to say, or embarrassed to say, oh, that's too expensive for me. So it actually drags it out, further into the pipeline. So the other thing I'm curious about on the pricing, so you were mentioning about testimonials and FAQs. Are you saying you would include that on the pricing page, or is that a separate part of the website?
All within the pricing page itself.
Gotcha.
So pricing page is probably, if you've got one of the most visited pages on your site. Probably like home, pricing. If you've got a demo page, results, then maybe the book a call page. Probably like the top 5 visited. So people literally are going to go home, pricing, maybe look at live demo if you've got one, or check out some case studies and results, and then they're probably going to book a call. So if you can handle all those objections up front within that pricing page itself, just think of all that time that you can save. And basically, because sales are going to get asked that question like right away, like all those things like, how long does it take to set up? Do I get an account manager? What's the refund policy and all that stuff? If you can just address that head on, it just saves so much time and pain, and it shows trust and transparency.
Yeah, makes sense. So you said pricing is one of the most visited pages. I agree. That's one of the first pages I always click on myself. Does it help with SEO as well, or do you find that the pricing is one of the pages that tends to drive SEO traffic too?
It can a little bit. Yeah, it can a bit. I mean, I encourage, depending on what type of business you are, whether you're software or services. It's like, for example, SaaS companies will have typically homepage, then feature pages, maybe industry pages on the industries, the sectors, the markets they serve. They'll probably have a pricing page. They'll have a bunch of resources, different types of blog articles, media, podcast, and such, the demo pages. So not just within pricing pages, but FAQs on each specific page that are relevant to that topic, and the questions that get brought up on CS, customer success calls, or sales calls, or even early stage calls are really useful. Because again, they build trust. They handle objections head on, and they also help with SEO value because it's actually searchable content that's genuinely useful.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know Google tends to like FAQs. Right? It's great content for them to serve up. So you mentioned another one of my favorite topics there. We didn't rehearse this. I swear we didn't. Demos. So I love a good demo. It drives me nuts when particularly software companies don't have a demo, because it's the easiest thing in the world to have a demo video for. But the other frustration I have is they have a demo, but they put it behind, they gate it, right? They put it behind some kind of form. And, the number one reason for it typically is, well, we don't want our competitors to see it. Well, guess what? Your competitor is going to see it, unless you have it behind Fort Knox. So any thoughts on the best way to have a demo, how to present it? Any thoughts on demos, I guess?
Yeah. So, and basically, most of the insights I share are from like you say on our podcast, Breaking B2B. We've interviewed nearly 400 B2B marketing leaders, execs, CMOs, VPs of marketing, etc. Fast growth tech companies, and from that data, they've basically said to me, if I land on a B2B site, be it service or tech, I want to quickly get an idea of what you do, how it helps, problems you fix. I want to see pricing. I want to see the offer in action. I want to get some of my questions answered, see some of your case studies or client results. And if you check all those boxes, then I want to be able to easily schedule time with an expert that can address my questions and see if we're a fit to help. So with that said, yeah, if you can share, I mean, at the very least, you want to share screenshots of your offer in action, the product. One up is a GIF, get various GIFs throughout the site. And then one up from that is like a product video. So various tours of the certain elements and features within your product people want to see in different use cases that will weave into relevant pages. Then one up from that is the demo tool, the live interactive demo itself, which I think probably makes sense now, considering there's a lot of tools like Navatech and Walnut, and there's a few others that enable you to do that. So it's a tricky one, I think, whether you should gate it behind an email or not. I think I'd probably be inclined to give people a taster. So I'd probably say, look, let's give them maybe the most demanded 2 or 3 features within the demo, so they can, maybe in your header of your website, you've got try it now and then book a demo. So they can hit try it now. That takes them to that interactive demo itself. They can guide through the top 2 or 3 features that are most asked for within the product. And then once you get to that stage, you say, this is all we can show you for now, like book a call with a sales engineer or specialist. Then you can see the whole thing in action for 20 minutes or however long the session is. That would probably be my take, but curious to know yours.
I obviously not a fan of gating these things, because you want people to see your products. Typically, you and I should have worked together long ago, because typically that's the approach I've taken, is you give like a 2-minute video demo for free, and then, hey, if you want to see more, fill out the form, and then you get the full video, and then drive people, to sign up for a one-on-one demo, right? Depending on your product. And it still drives me nuts, the number of people that really don't want you to see what their product is. Whether it's because they're really not proud of the product, or they're just very nervous of it. So I think you're exactly right. And I think it does highlight that fact of, the people that are deciding what goes on the website are not necessarily the people that have ever bought these products, right? So oftentimes you'll get pushback from sales. Well, if there's a demo on the website, then nobody's going to want to talk to me, and I need to talk to them to show how it is. But has that salesperson ever tried to buy a SaaS product and seen how frustrating it is not to get it? So I think it's the whole, walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. It's that famous saying, isn't it? People buy for their reasons, not ours.
Yeah.
So exactly why they're gonna, if you hide it from them, same with pricing, same with your product, same with client reviews. If you hide it, they're gonna find a way. In SaaS, they're going to go to review sites like G2, 𝗥𝗲𝗃, whatever, or they're just going to YouTube it or search it. They'll find it. If they want to find the information, they will. Or they'll get so frustrated and think this company is like so against showing me anything. I'm just going to go to a competitor.
Right.
And you're giving your competitors free leads.
Yeah. It's that whole path of least resistance, right? It's like, I'm not going to spend too much time trying to understand your product. Now, I could keep talking about this for hours, but the reality is, you've covered a lot of this ground. There's a really good episode of your podcast quite recently where you went into best practices for a B2B website. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. I would recommend anybody go and listen to that and really dig more into the details. I have a couple of more questions for you, though, slightly less focused on the websites. So I've seen that for your personal branding, you have started using some sort of TikTok style memes, right? You did this, hey, I asked the public, what gets you #1 ranking on Google, right? So I'm curious, like, how is that working for you?
Oh, I do a lot of stupid stuff, man. And I waste a lot of time on LinkedIn. But I think for me, it's because, again, a bit like my Breaking B2B website headline, I was a bit frustrated with other SEOs. So I'm probably opposite to most SEOs in the fact that I'm not that technical. I come from a sales background. And so most of my approach with SEO is, rather than going super technical and web dev wise, I'd rather go high level strategic content. I'm a lot more scrappier. So I like to do stuff that gets impact quite fast because of that sales background. So that, with that in mind, a lot of the stuff you'll see from SEOs on LinkedIn is very technical. Whereas I think, how can I stand out, do something that's a bit different? And so one of those concepts recently was, I'd just go up to folks in the street with my Rode microphone and my friend filming me and just ask them questions like, do you know what SEO is? How do you get to the top of Google? Is Google a force for good or bad? What do you think about AI content? And some of the responses like super funny. I also did stuff where I talked about outbound sales. So I thought I went up to folks and said, what do you think about cold calling, or does cold calling still work? And bumped into a policeman. This police officer just started having a go at me. He's like, cold calling's illegal. And I just went on a super rant. And it was just, it's just funny, man, to get people's reactions, because you either get people that are super against it or people that are actually like really receptive. And every now and then you bump into someone that actually is an SEO themselves or has a friend that does digital marketing. And so it just produces quite funny responses.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. I think it's, we always talk about the split between B2B and B2C marketing. I think it's great when B2B sometimes takes a page out of B2C or social media and does something fun. I think the bigger you get, the tougher it is to do. So I give you credit for that. I would encourage anybody to follow Sam on LinkedIn as well to see some of these videos.
And there you have it. I hope you found these B2B website tips, strategies, and ideas of use. And if you want to join thousands of B2B legends enjoying my weekday newsletter for unusual B2B marketing and SEO tips, as well as podcast updates and more, head over to breakingb2b.com and hit that newsletter tab. And with that, I shall catch you on the next one. Cheers.